Back in December, I went to Utrecht to partake in Bandai Card Games Fest Digimon Finals, and well, it didn't go very well from the gameplay point and also the event itself, and I was quite disappointed in that if you watch my original video on the topic. However, we are in a brand new season, and one of the first events that we've had for the regional season is OPE's Glasgow event that happened last weekend. And in today's video, I want to talk about how the event was there anything good, was there anything bad, and talk about my tournament run as a whole, while also talking about the deck that I decided to take. Before we get into that though, if you enjoy this content or the content that I have on this channel, please subscribe to the channel. It turns out that only like 25% of you are actually subscribed, so just check down below, click subscribe, and you'll get some Digimon content, hopefully pretty frequent now. And while you're down there, feel free to use my affiliate code for Big Orbit Cards. Big Orbit Cards is the vendor that I use to pick up all of my cards because they pretty much have everything and their service is incredible. And I'm not just saying this because I am an affiliate, I was using them way before, back in like 2018 for Pokemon. And if you look down below or see on screen right now, there is a 5% code that you can use at checkout to save yourself 5% off. Enough talking about that, let's talk about the event and the venue itself. So as I said previously, this event was in Glasgow, and I haven't actually visited Glasgow before, which is kind of surprising for me, I guess. But overall, I had a pleasant experience in Glasgow. Before even getting to the venue itself, they had really good connection links. So I was in Bridgeton, I believe it was, and there was just a direct train to the exhibition centre, which is where the event took place. I think the train was like £1.70, which is insane. If you live in the UK, you know £1.70 for a train is a steal anywhere. But for here, it was just kind of like the norm. Yeah, made travel very easy and made it very accessible for sure. The venue itself was in one hall, I believe, not between two, and essentially it was part of just a wider exhibition centre. There was a few things going on. I think on the Sunday there was like a dance competition going on, so there's a huge amount of space, but it was only in one of the halls. And once you entered the main hall, there was a lot of things going on in there. So they kind of divided it into games. So further on left there was Digimon, further right was One Piece, and near the entrance was Dragon Ball. It switched out on the day, so one day was Fusion World and one day was Masters. In the middle they had like the TO section, so you can go up to them and ask questions, which I think is, you know, just needed because sometimes there is confusion at these events. At opposite sides of the walls there were two vendors, one primarily focused on One Piece and then one was primarily focusing on Digimon, but there was also just some Dragon Ball and Gundam cards, which I thought was quite interesting, between the booths. And then to finish off this hall, we essentially had just a food truck which was selling kind of like burgers and chips and some drinks, which was quite nice to see. Overall, I think this venue was lovely. A lot of space around. There wasn't anything confusing because they had all the signage making it very clear. Them having not one but two vendors was very, very good. There has been times like in Bandai Card Game Fest where there was no vendors whatsoever at the biggest event of the year for not only Digimon but for One Piece, Dragon Ball, and I guess Battle Spirits. Rest in peace, Battle Spirits. So it was great to see that there was essentially just loads of things that were just connected to this event. There was only one food choice, which kind of is a bit meh. Maybe you don't want a burger, but thankfully there was just like a local Morrison's inside the stall, and there was also a bar further down, so there was quite a variety of places that you could go to get like a drink, a snack. Good job OPE, great venue choice here for the event. So let's talk about probably the worst part of the weekend, and that was the Bandai TCG Plus app. Let's get this out here straight away. It did work, like the pairings of the tables did work. There was no issues from my side at the two events that I did, which was the regionals and the Ultimate Cup for Digimon. However, Bandai's incompetence with this app continues to shine. Digimon is a best of 3 game, but you can only choose best of 1 option, so you can only choose 1 or 0, and there was no way to draw. So essentially this regional was drawless, which is crazy because, you know, draws do matter in these kind of tournaments. But unfortunately, we had no draws, so essentially it was kind of down to like, if you're on game 3, it came down to security, then the cards on the field, then cards in deck, in hand. It was a real bummer for the event, quite frankly, and hopefully Bandai fixes their app very quickly. I know this happened at the Ultimate Cup online as well, where you can only choose 0 or 1 wins, which is not great, and it's not great to see that hasn't been fixed yet, but I'm hoping that in the future they do fix this issue. However, outside of that major issue, the event ran smoothly. There was, I believe, 4 rounds, and then there was a lunch break, and then there was another 4 rounds. Depending on your ranking, if you got top 16, you would then play top 16 the next day. There was timers all around, so you can easily see how much time you have left on the game, and then you can also just talk to the staff who had any questions whatsoever. So the communication between staff was really good as well. I was talking to them quite frequently actually about certain things, especially with the Ultimate Cup, which I'll get into in a bit. Yeah, outside of that, Regionals and Ultimate Cup went smoothly. So let's talk about the matchups and the deck that I decided to play. Throughout this tournament, I didn't really say much on social media, but if you do want to see live updates for tournaments, go to my Twitter. I'm updating it constantly. Essentially, what I decided to play for this event was Cross Heart. I know it's a bit of a rogue choice. I haven't really even discussed it in a video on this channel yet, and I will do it at some point for sure, maybe when BT21 comes out in a first draft. But I think Cross Heart was probably the best deck that I decided to take to the event. I also had like Numemon and Excel ready to go, but I felt like Cross Heart ticked the boxes the most for me. We'll get into the deck later on in the video. Essentially, I ended up 5 wins and 3 losses, which I'm actually kind of proud about, to be honest, because in testing at the event and then outside of the event, I had a few times where I've struggled finding core pieces. So going 5-3 was nice, especially as I think I would say like 2 of the losses were essentially down to having floodgate rookies that I couldn't answer. So I'm quite happy about that for sure. So I'm going to quickly go over the games. I don't remember them fully, but I have notes from my Twitter. I do tweet stuff, follow me, but I'm just gonna quickly go over them just to give you an idea of what happened at the event for me in my 8 rounds. So first round was against Purple Hybrid. I ended up winning this one 2-1. Essentially, I couldn't out Gallantmon. I believe it was Crimson mode, so I let my opponent just essentially win the game, which was stupid for me. I should have answered it, but I couldn't. Then on game 2, I was able to go into EX6 Shoutmon and then just like essentially just use the option card multiple times. There's a running theme with this deck, and it's just the fact that EX6 and the option card are insane. And then in game 3, I had Valderam in my deck, and that completely stunned my opponent out for a turn, allowing me to buy some time to win the game on the following turn. He did delete my Valderam, which meant I got to partition a Zeeg and an EX6, which my opponent was very surprised at, actually. He was kind of just like, how does that work? And I'm like, I have yellow here, I have black here, play them both. And he's like, oh. So it seems like not people actually know about the Valderam interactions with Cross Heart, so thank goodness for that. It helped me quite a few times in this tournament actually, so I ended up going 1-0 in my first round. Round 2 was against Mirage Galgamon, and this was one of the games where I just essentially couldn't do anything because he just had the Otamamon, which stopped me from playing the deck essentially. There were ways so I could delete it in the deck, like with Collision and with Shooting Starmon, but I just didn't have those options available to me, unfortunately. He went like Otamamon game 1 and game 3. He also had it in game 2, but he bricked game 2, so I was able to clean that one up. Round 3 was against Gallantmon, and this was a matchup that I did want to see because I felt like in the testing that I had with Gallantmon, I felt like I should be able to win those games. The consistency of Gallantmon is kind of like meh, so when the deck isn't hitting, I feel like I should be able to hit it. In round 3, that was exactly the case. My opponent on game 1 decided to do an interesting play where he went into the X antibody. I swung with, I believe it was the Sparrowmon, used the Raptor Sparrow to draw and then gain or look at 3 cards and add 1. He decided to do it then, so I think he doesn't want me to get the swing, but then I was able to go into EX6, do -6k to the whole field, and then delete the Crimson mode, which granted me the memory to then go into Alliance, 2 checks, option twice, and then go for game. So unfortunate for my opponent there. And then game 2, he just bricked. Like, that's what I was kind of expecting to happen at this event with Gallantmon. Like, there were going to be a lot of bricks for Gallantmon. I believe it happened again later on in the event as well. Yeah, I'm happy that my thesis on the Gallantmon matchup was correct, even if my opponent did make a misplay. Round 4 was against Purple Hybrid, so I lost this one. Again, it was just a case of them having Psychomon, and Psychomon just ruins me completely. So unfortunately, I did lose this one. I think it was like game 1 and game 3. where they just went Psychmon. I just couldn't answer it with like collision or anything like that. Normally I'm able to do that, but I just couldn't find the cards that I needed. And then in game 2, he did have Psychmon, but I had the answer for it, and then I Vowed Armed, and then I won that way. Round 5 was against Imperial Dramon. This is, again, I think a very easy win for me. The biggest problem that Imperial has is that like your partition just essentially does nothing for you, because I'm essentially able to delete the stack, and then as my minus DP board is permanent for the turn, you don't get your Stingmon or your Vmon back, so you can't trigger effects. So I feel like this was a pretty just clean matchup for me overall. I had a pretty nasty setup in both games, quite frankly, but I was able to navigate the board. My opponent did go Medieval Gallantmon in game 2, but as my guy was 12k and not 11k, he couldn't delete the guy essentially, which meant I was able to go for game on the following turn. At this point, I'm 3-2, and I'm like, well, one loss away from essentially getting completely cut out of top 16, so it was kind of like knife's edge. Speaking of Imperial, my next matchup was against another Imperial player, but this time it was the purple-red variant. Again, kind of the same thesis applies to the previous one, where I was essentially able to stop them from doing shenanigans of playing stuff out. There's also the fact that my opponent didn't find all the cards he was looking for, so I was able to abuse that. Even when he had like Dino Beamon and he was able to partition, again, I was just able to essentially delete the stack and they couldn't really answer it. So I went 2-0 and then I was up 4-2. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. However, it all came crumbling down on round 7, where I played against Purple Hybrid again. And yeah, I'm still kind of shocked about this game, if I'm being honest, because my opponent went Argomon. I was expecting Argomon in a deck of Purple Hybrid, obviously, but unfortunately, he had 2 in his deck, which I thought was insane. He ran 2 and he was able to find it both games, suspending all my tamers. I can't answer it, so I essentially just lost trying to do anything this game. He didn't even mill or anything, like he just found it. Like it was genuinely just crazy how consistent he was able to get Argomon. Shut my game down completely. And then round 8, the final round before top 16 the next day, and I was against Gallantmon, and this was probably the most frustrating game for me throughout the whole tournament. Game 1 was a blowout in my opinion. I think I just found literally everything and I was able to win on like turn 2, turn 3 or something like that. It was maybe not turn 2, turn 3, maybe like turn 4, but it was genuinely just like a crazy blowout on my end. Game 2 was very bad on my part. I had really good setup and I had game on board, but I just didn't pop the memory boost. I didn't have enough memory to essentially do my EX6 play because I didn't have 2 of the sources, which was crazy at that point. So I kind of just griefed. If I did the memory boost, I would have enough to go for game that turn, but I just messed up and my opponent was able to punish me, rightfully so, and he won game 2. Game 3 was definitely a bit of a worrying thing. Like I mentioned previously, the time rules for this event were really bad because there was no draw. It was just essentially, do you have more security? Do you have more cards in the field? How many cards you have in deck, etc. So I ended up playing this game very quickly. I think I was just essentially just playing like level 3s so quick. I was playing like Sparrow, Shout, and my opponent couldn't answer them, which was kind of surprising for a Gallant list. And if he did answer him, I was able to get effects from stuff like the Shoutmon to play Tamers, and I did find the Tamers for sure. Luckily for me though, I was able to go into EX6 pretty early on and just close the game out. And with my record of 5-3, I ended up getting 46th place, which I'm actually very happy about, especially with a deck like Crossheart. I wasn't expecting this kind of result for Crossheart, but I am incredibly proud of that result for sure. The next day, I ended up playing in the Ultimate Cup because my friend was in top 16, so me and my mate ended up just playing in the Ultimate Cup just to essentially just play so we can wait for him, and he did pretty well. He ended up getting top 8, which congratulations, I'll post the video of his deck list later down the line. However, I ended up going to the Ultimate Cup and there were 2 pods, one with 64 players and one with 21 players. I was in the 21 players, so I essentially got a guaranteed X4. Wow, X4, the bad one, but I got it. And I was able to get a full playset of the Shoutmon promos. So now that I've talked about the event and how I placed in the tournaments, I got 46th and 5th respectively in the events. I have one more thing to talk about, and that is Gundam. Yeah, so one of the cool things that this event actually had access to was demo Gundam, and this was free, not like Utrecht where you had to pay, I think it was like 60 to 70 to buy the beta box thing. You got to play Gundam for free, trial the game out, you know, how it should have been at Utrecht. And in that event, you essentially got a beta deck, which was pretty cool. I ended up getting the blue one, the blue-white one. And essentially the big thing about this was the fact that you got an EX resource if you won the event. And at that time, the EX resource was going for like £150, which was insane. So I ended up winning mine and I got my EX resource. So if I ever decide to play Gundam, I have max rarity EX resource, I guess. Very happy about it. And I'm gonna make a video about Gundam relatively soon because I feel like it is an interesting thing. I enjoyed it. I think it has like some cool things going for it. We'll have to wait and see in how the game develops over time. But the fact that it was free and you just got to try it and it was, you know, just a good time overall. Gundam was a fun thing to do, but it also added to the diversity of things that you could do. So instead of just doing the side events, you could do Gundam or you could do a combination of both. Now that I've talked about the event, let's talk about the deck that I decided to play at the event, which was Cross Heart. I changed the deck between the regionals and the Ultimate Cup, so I'll talk about the deck now. Hello, so this is my version of Cross Hearts that allowed me to get 46th place at Glasgow Regionals. I'm going to go over all of the cards, give you an idea of what they all do, their functionality, and just some things that I thought might be good to point out with this deck. So starting off with the egg, we have Pikmons. This is essentially just a guaranteed draw one, but it's also a huge combo enabler for the deck for stuff like the Sparrowmon. This card just essentially just allows you to stock your stuff underneath your tamers and draw an additional card, which the deck needs more consistency, and Pikmons does provide that. We only play 8 level 3s in this deck, the first one being Shoutmon. This is incredibly powerful in the deck. Essentially just on delete, allow you to look at the top 3 cards of the deck and play a tamer card with the Cross Heart trait among them and then save. This essentially just means you get huge value from Taiki Kudo and the Trio Tamer. You primarily want to get the Trio Tamer early on because this just essentially is your memory gain for the deck because you don't have like a set free in this deck, or in this version of the deck I should say. So essentially just getting a free swing, playing a tamer for free hopefully is pretty good value, so you play it for. Sparrowmon is your search engine, and what I mean by search is that this is in combination with the Raptor Sparrowmon. The combo here is that you essentially swing with the Sparrowmon, you use the Pikmon's effect to put the Raptor Sparrowmon underneath, and then when attacking you can then use the Sparrowmon effect to digivolve from Raptor Sparrow from underneath one of your tamers, and then look at the top 3 cards and then add one of the cards. The Sparrowmon engine is also a really nice way to essentially get rid of those problematic rookies that this deck has problems with, because the Sparrowmon provides collision, so 5k collision, getting rid of those like Psychmons, Otamamons is a huge deal. Shooting Starmon is probably the main piece of the combo that you need. Essentially this just treats itself as a Starmons, but when you would play a Cross Heart trait, you can give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 3k DP and security attack -1. This counts itself as well when you play it, so essentially you're able to get like minus 9k on a Digimon on one turn. And I should probably say for all of these, but all of the like altered forms I like to call them, there's probably a better name for them, so Starmon, Sparrow, Jaeger, Omnishout, Alter, and, well, not Zeeg, but they all have an effect which just allows you to, on deletion, you can place one card with the Cross Heart or Blue Flare trait from your hand or trash under any of your tamers. This is just essentially just a way to recycle the pieces that you need. So yeah, you need the Shooting Star in combination with the EX6 to do huge combos, and essentially just use Meteor Rock Soul to the maximum because this card is broken, which we'll get into in a bit. We've already talked about the Raptor Sparrowmon doing the search and giving collision, so let's talk about the Omni Shout, which allows you to, on playing when digivolving, give something minus 3k and then delete something with 3k. This combines well with the Shoutmon, which on play allows you to digivolve into the Omni Shoutmon for free, so you can essentially delete something or delete 2 things here, and most importantly it does have the Cross Heart trait, so if you do this play you do have a swing with the Omni Shout, which has come up quite a few times actually. Just getting that extra swing does make the difference sometimes, so the Omni Shout is really nice. Now we talk about, I guess, like the garnets of this deck. If you know Yu-Gi-Oh terminology, this just essentially just means like cards that you have in the deck which are kind of dead until you need them for your main piece, which in this case is the EX6. So in this case it's the Jaeger, the Alter, and to a lesser degree the Zeeg Greymon. Jaeger essentially just allows you to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and then they can't unsuspend or activate when digivolving effects. This is kind of neat for certain situations, but it doesn't really come up that much, and it also has piercing, which does some stuff I guess. Most importantly, the piercing goes well with the Raptor Sparrowmon collision, which you will be using in the EX6 stack, so you can essentially just force a block and then do 2 checks at security with the EX6. Then we have Alter Ballista. This essentially allows you to, when digivolving and on play, until until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your Digimon can't be returned to hand or decks by your opponent's effects, and this gains 3k DP, and its inheritable is blocker. Just an important fact, the Shoutmon EX6 is reboot, so you're essentially guaranteed to get the blocker on the following turn. Now let's talk about the Z Greymon. This piece is very weird because it doesn't have Crossheart in traits, which is very annoying when it comes to searching it. Z Greymon has a really good effect in on-play and when digivolving. One of your opponent's Digimon gets D-Digivolve 2, and then if your opponent has 2 or more Digimon, return one of their level 4 or lower to their hand. And then the on-deletion is also different. You may play one Blue Flare or Crossheart trait Digimon card with a play cost of 5 or less from under your tamers without paying the cost, then save. This doesn't really come up that much, but you could potentially play this and then on deletion play out a Shoutmon, which can then play out an Omni Shout, which can clear some problematic cards and set you up for the following turn. So we've talked about all the pieces, let's talk about EX6. This card is a custom card, Alliance, Reboot, and Material Save 4. On play, for each of this Digimon's Digievolution cards, all your opponent's Digimon gains minus 1k DP for the turn, and then you may play a Shooting Star Mon from under your tamers without paying the cost. And then when attacking, you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon with as much or less DP as this Digimon. It also digicrosses for -2, so if you have all 5 pieces, this only costs 1 to get into. So you're telling me for 1 memory, you can essentially just clear your opponent's entire field, or do like a mini ruin mode type effect, Alliance, and then delete opponent's Digimon that's like 17k. This pretty much answers everything in the format as long as it's affected by effects, and even if it isn't, we have ways to bypass that or certain cards format. And obviously the Alliance is just automatically triggered because you have Shooting Starmon and you can alliance with that straight away. So you're pretty much guaranteed to have at least 17k on this guy, but you also gain 2k DP from Z Greymon, so making it 19k, pretty much be able to delete anything. And this is your main combo piece, and this is how you essentially win the game. Medieval Gallimon is a card that I would switch out immediately. I put it in the deck last minute and I kind of regretted it. It didn't do enough in the deck, and I didn't even play it at all during my tournament run. I felt like it was just a brick, and every time I found it, it was through search, and if I got it through search, I wasn't able to pick it up or anything like that. So just kind of a meh card, and I would replace it immediately. What I won't replace, however, is the Chaosmon Valderam. Maybe so when the ban list becomes in effect, but this card is insane in this strategy. It has Security Attack +1 and Partition, and then when Digivolving effect, pretty much get to suspend 2 guys and gain 2 memory. Then on play effects don't activate, and Digimon can't unsuspend until the end of their turn. With this deck, you can essentially guarantee that you'll get the Partition because, well, the Z Greymon and the Shoutmon are both level 6 and they both filled the color requirements. Pretty much guaranteed to get it when you just Digivolve on top of it. And this was just the main way that I won against like purple hybrids. Obviously that deck is going to be seeing less popularity going forward. Just being able to do this on anything going forward is important, especially stuff like Royal Knights. We also have stuff Red Purple Imperial Dramon, which do rely on play effects happening. So this card does have a place in the metagame after purple hybrid, and it is very effective in this deck. Then we talk about the tamers for Taiki. This is just essentially a searcher and a placer, so you get to do 2 searches here. Most importantly, you get to add first and then place one. So essentially what you'll be doing is placing all your pieces. This just has the normal, when you digicross, you can suspend this tamer and use cards under your tamers as Digievolution cards for this digicross. So essentially just being able to use your tamers as a secondary resource. Then we go into the trio tamer. Just a simple effect here of by placing 1 card with Crossheart, Blue Flare from your hand under this tamer, you gain a memory and draw 1 card, and then it also has the Digicross Suspender Tamer effect as well. This card is just really good cycle for the deck, and if you're able to get like 1 or 2 going on a given turn, you just gain so much advantage that your opponent can't really deal with it. Now let's talk about the most broken option that I've seen, Meteor Rock Soul. This has dual purpose and they both work out incredibly well. You can either play a Crossheart with 4k DP or less from under one of your tamers without paying the cost, or by unsuspending one of your EX6s and your Shooting Starmon, attack 1 player with one of your Digimon. So it has dual purpose here. You can play out stuff like the Shoutmon here, which allows you to on play Digivolve into the Omni Shout if you have one underneath tamer, and that could help you remove a problematic card on the field. However, the main use is the OTK potential with this card, where you're able to unsuspend the Shoutmon EX6 and the Shooting Starmon, which allows you to essentially swing again, Alliance, 2 checks, 19k. You can do that multiple times in a given turn, turn. It is insane. I can't tell you how powerful this card is. If you have the cards for this deck, try it out. It is absolutely insane. The final card is Sepia Memory Boost. This one you might think is a little bit weird, but let me explain. Just a simple searcher and gain 2 memory. The 2 memory actually does matter at certain times because sometimes you have trouble finding specific pieces, primarily the Z Greymon. However, this card essentially searches every card in the deck. It's either yellow or black, and as you can see, yellow, black, yellow, black, yellow, yellow, black, yellow, black, black, yellow. All of the Digimon are essentially searchable minus the medieval Gallimon. Yeah, we need more searches in this deck, and that fulfills its role pretty well. Now, when it came to the Ultimate Cup, I decided to switch out some of the cards, primarily the problematic medieval Gallimons that I was having trouble even using in the deck. So I switched it out for a Nene BT19 and a X7 Superior Mode. Nene was primarily just due to the fact that we trash a lot with the Raptor Sparrow, so we can use those sources when we need to. However, the problem with this card is that it's Twilight, not Crossheart, which means we can't play it through the Shoutmon. So I think going forward, I would probably switch it to the other BT19 Taiki Kudo, which allows you to essentially play it with the Shoutmon effect. And then X7 Superior Mode is just kind of like that button where you click and you just hope that it wins you the game from that point onwards. Essentially, you're just able to digicross with anything that has blue flare, Crossheart with different card numbers. So you can essentially do it for 6 and then remove a guy on the field, which can be problematic, and then your opponent's security effects do not activate. It's just kind of like another Shoutmon that you can go into that helps you answer some things if you need to. But for the most part, I would probably cut it for another card. Again, probably another Taiki Kudo from BT19. More specifically, this one, which allows you to essentially set to free, and then you can use the Digicross on all turns if you want to. Because it is important sometimes, like if your Chaosmon was to die on your opponent's turn, you can't Digicross from the Tamers, but with this one, you can because it's all turns and not just your turn. But yeah, that was my regional list and the updates that I made for the Ultimate Cup the following day. And that was the deck portion of the video. I'm pretty happy with the deck currently. I'm going to make some changes, especially when BT21 comes out. We're going to be making some big changes there. Yeah, keep up to date with my Crossheart adventure, I guess, by subscribing to the channel. Overall though, I had a really good time. I think OPE did an amazing event here in Glasgow, had everything that you wanted at a decent price. It wasn't crazy to get to. It was very easily accessible for the majority of players. I just had a good time overall. But what did you think? Did you go to Glasgow? Did you think it was a good event? Did you think it was a bad event? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.